Hi folks, this is Karim Raouf from IT Visualizer channel. They will continue our lab Matrix labs, the video number 25. I've been discussing in the previous video the following. I'm still working on discussing the DCDIAG tool, which is a very important tool to test the domain controllers and the Active Directory status or health. We have seen that there is 21 tests that this tool run to make sure everything is working perfectly on the domain controllers and the Active Directory. A lot of tests will test a lot of components of the Active Directory and the health of the domain controllers. For example, one of the tests will check the system log for the domain controllers to make sure that there is no errors concerning the operating system that the domain controller is set up on. And some tests will check the replication of the Active Directory database to make sure that there is no delay in the login of the users to the domain, or there is no problems when some users are trying to access certain files or folders within the domain. This all is affected by the Active Directory health, and also this is affected by the replication, as we have seen before. So today we will continue working with the tests that the DCDIAG tool will run. One of these important tests is the services test, which is a very important test that will check 15 services that are AD dependent. So the Active Directory depend upon these 15 services to work properly. We will see what are these services, how they will affect the Active Directory, what will happen if one of these services is not running perfectly. Before that, we have seen in the beginning of the lab that the Active Directory cannot work without a couple of protocols. So the Active Directory will not work unless there is a couple of protocols running. For example, if you have seen this before, let's go and see one thing here. So we have seen before that if one of these protocols is not running, then the Active Directory will not function. The LDAP protocol, which is essential protocol for Active Directory databases to communicate with, working with the LDAP, or clients will not be able to communicate with the Active Directory databases unless this LDAP protocol is working. The Kerberos, which is responsible for network authentication, if this protocol is not working, then the Active Directory will not function properly. The DNS, which Active Directory depends heavily on it for communicating between the domain controllers, so the Active Directory database will replicate. So if I am trying to replicate the Active Directory database from one DC to another DC, the DNS will be asked to provide the IP address for the replication partner or the replication partners. The RPC protocol is a very important protocol for the DCs to communicate with each other, not for replication but for normal communication. Okay, so all of these are protocols that the Active Directory will not function unless they are working. Okay, these are the protocols, but for the services, this is a different thing. The services also is a different thing. The services is like some components that without it, the Active Directory will not work. So we need to know these services and what they are exactly, and what will happen if one of these services are not working properly. Okay, let's first ask ChatGPT for one thing here, because some of you may be confused. What is a service and what is a protocol? What is the difference between a protocol and what is the difference between a Windows service? So let's ask ChatGPT about this thing. What is a Windows service and what is a protocol? For example, Active Directory depend upon RPC for DC's communication. and AD depend upon net login service for users to log on to the domain. So this is, we need to explain what is the difference between a protocol and a service, and you are giving him an example, for example, that the RPC protocol, the Active Directory depend on it for DC communication, and the net login service on the domain controllers is responsible for logging in the users to the domain. Let's see what will be the answer of ChatGPT. Okay, so here we see that he gave us a simple explanation of each one of these. Let's read it loudly and see what is the difference between a service and a protocol.
Windows Service. A Windows service is a type of application that runs in the background on a Windows operating system. These services are often started when the operating system boots up and run independently of any user interface. They are typically used to perform tasks that need to be running continuously, such as network communications, data storage management, or monitoring system health. Windows services can be controlled through the Services Control Manager, SCM, which allows administrators to start, stop, pause, and configure the settings of each service. Protocol. A protocol is a set of rules and standards used to enable communication between devices over a network. Protocols define the syntax, semantics, and synchronization of communication, and they can operate at different layers of the OSI, Open Systems Interconnection, model. Examples include TCP/IP for internet communication, HTTP, HTTPS for web browsing, and FTP for file transfers. Example: Active Directory and protocols. Active Directory AD is a directory service developed by Microsoft for Windows domain networks. It relies on several protocols and services to function correctly. 1. Remote Procedure Call, RPC protocol. This is a protocol that one program can use to request a service from a program located on another computer in a network. Active Directory uses RPC for communication between domain controllers, DCs. RPC allows AD to perform operations such as replication of directory data, which is crucial for maintaining consistency across multiple DCs. 2. NetLogon Service. NetLogon Service. This is a Windows service that runs on domain controllers and is responsible for authenticating users and machines to the domain. When a user logs on to a domain, the NetLogon service is used to validate their credentials. It also helps in locating domain controllers and establishing secure channels between the client and DC. How these work together. Active Directory and RPC. When domain controllers need to communicate with each other, they often use RPC. This is necessary for tasks such as replicating changes made in one DC to other DCs, ensuring that the directory information is consistent across the domain. Active Directory and NetLogon Service. When a user attempts to log on to a domain, the NetLogon service on the domain controller processes the logon request. It validates the user's credentials against the information stored in the Active Directory database and establishes a secure channel for further communication. Summary: Windows Service, a background application running on Windows, controlled by the Services Control Manager. Protocol, a set of rules for communication between devices on a network. Active Directory dependencies. RPC, used for inter-domain controller communication and replication. NetLogon Service, handles user authentication and establishes secure channels for domain communication. Understanding these components and how they interact is crucial for managing and troubleshooting Active Directory environments.
Okay, so this is one thing. I think the Kerberos protocol is different than the net login service. So what is the difference between the Kerberos protocol and net login. I think they complete each other. Let's see. So here is beginning defining each one of them, but I need to know the relationship between both. Comparison. Kerberos protocol provides secure authentication for users and services, functionality issues and manage tickets for authenticating users to services. Net login. Okay, so let's see the summary. So it's saying summary. Kerberos protocol is a network authentication protocol that provides secure and efficient authentication through ticketing mechanism. Net login service is a Windows service that supports domain logins, secure channel establishment, and domain control location, working in conjunction with protocols like Kerberos to facilitate overall authentication process. So they work together. Okay, this is a protocol, and again we know it is a protocol and a service. We have known the difference between a protocol and the service, and now they work together. So they are working together to complete the authentication process. Okay, one to authenticate the users and accessing resources using ticketing mechanism, and the other logs in the users to the domain, and with it you can locate the domain controller and make a secure channel between the domain controllers. So I think this is somehow now we can visualize or know what is the difference between a service and a protocol. So if you can tell him explain in layman's terms the difference between a Windows service and a protocol. So we can let it layman's terms just to explain it in non-technical terms and see what is the difference. Okay, we can see here a summary. A service, a background worker on your computer that does specific jobs automatically. This is like an analogy or an example. A background worker on your computer that does specific jobs automatically. Protocol, a set of rules that lets computer talk to each other in a clear and organized way. Then the protocol is some rules for the computers to talk to each other. A Windows service is the worker or something that makes a certain job within the Windows operating system automatically. So this is the difference. This is a job and this is a protocol or a set of rules. Okay, so a Windows service is like an invisible helper on your computer, while a protocol is like a language or set of rules. Okay, a language, very good example, or rules that lets different computers and device communication efficiently. Okay, so this is good thing. Let's go now and ask ChatGPT to explain what is the service or what is the test. This test so this is the test is called services done by the DCDIAG tool. Let's see how ChatGPT will explain this in layman terms. So I'm asking it to explain the whole text. Okay, explaining this text provided by Microsoft for this test. I asked it to explain it in layman terms. So let's see what will be the answer of ChatGPT. Okay, let's go further and see here.
Sure, let's break it down in simpler terms. The services test in the DCDIAG tool checks that certain important services related to Active Directory AD are working properly. Here's what it does. 1. Check if services are running. It makes sure that these services are active and running. 2. Check accessibility. It ensures that these services can be accessed as needed. 3. Check start types. It verifies that these services are set to start automatically or as specified. Here are the services it checks. DFSR. Handles file replication, runs in its own process. DNSCache. Helps with domain name system lookups. Event System. Manages system events. SAdmin manages Internet Information Services if you're using email-based AD replication. ISEMServe, part of AD services. KDC manages Kerberos authentication. Handles network logins. TDS deals with the AD directory. Manages file replication, runs in its own process. ARPS manages remote procedure call services. It manages the security accounts manager. Server handles server functions. SMTPS manages email services if you're using email-based AD replication. W32Time manages time synchronization. Workstation manages workstation functions. These service names are found in a specific part of the system registry. HKey local machine system current control set services. To perform this check, the test uses a method called RPC, remote procedure call, and a protocol for managing services remotely. In simple terms, this test makes sure that all the critical services for Active Directory are up and running correctly, can be accessed, and are set to start as they should be.
So this is very good explanation. I need details about each service that the test service check for, the name of the service and description, its relationship to AD, and what will happen if it is not running or accessible or its startup status is changed. Okay, so we all know that each service in Windows have a couple of status. For example, if you go to the services console, we will see that each one of these services have to be started manually or automatic delayed start or disabled. So this I asked it what will happen if the startup type is changed for one of these services. What will happen if this will affect the Active Directory? So let's see the answer of ChatGPT and see what it will give us, or the answer it will give us. Just wait for a moment.
Certainly. Here's a detailed look at each service that the services test checks, along with their descriptions, relationship to Active Directory, AD, and potential issues if they're not running or configured correctly. The 1. DFSR, Distributed File System Replication. Description handles the replication of files across multiple servers. Relationship to AD, used for sysvol replication, which is critical for the replication of AD-related information across domain controllers. Impact if not running. Sysvol replication fails, leading to inconsistencies in group policies and login scripts. Startup type. Typically runs in its own process and should be set to automatic. Number 2. DNSCache, DNS client. Description. Resolves DNS queries locally to speed up subsequent queries. Relationship to AD. Essential for name resolution within the network, which is crucial for AD operations. Impact if not running, slower DNS queries, potential issues with name resolution impacting AD services. Startup type, automatic. HADR 3, Event System, COMS Event System. Description supports system event notification. Relationship to AD, needed for various AD-related services that rely on COM plus events. Impact if not running, failures in system event notifications, potentially affecting AD operations and other applications relying on COM plus events. Startup type, automatic. 4. IIS-admin service. Description, manages Internet Information Services IIS. Relationship to AD, required if using SMTP-based AD replication. Impact if not running, SMTP-based AD replication would fail. Startup type, if required, should be set to automatic. 5. IS-Insight messaging. Description, manages inter-site messaging in AD. Relationship to AD, facilitates communication between AD sites. Impact if not running, issues with replication and communication between different AD sites. Startup type automatic. 6. KDC, Kerberos Key Distribution Center, manages Kerberos authentication tickets. Relationship to AD, critical for user authentication in an AD environment. Impact if not running, users cannot authenticate using Kerberos, leading to login failures. Startup type, automatic. 7. NetLogin. Description: manages the logon process and maintains the security channel between a workstation and domain controller. Relationship to AD, essential for authenticating users and services. Impact if not running: users cannot log into the domain and domain controller location fails. Startup type: automatic. However, 8. NTDS, Active Directory Domain Services. Description: manages the AD database, central to the functioning of AD. Impact if not running: AD would be completely non-functional. Startup type: NTFRS, File Replication Service. Description: replicates files across servers. Relationship to AD: used for replicating sysfile folder, crucial for group policy, and login scripts. Impact if not running: issues with group policy distribution and login script execution. Startup type: runs in its own process and should be set to automatic. 10. RPCSS, Remote Procedure Call. Description: manages remote procedure call, RPC services. Relationship to AD: used by various AD-related services for communication. Impact if not running: failure in inter-service communication, affecting many AD functionalities. Startup type: automatic. 11. SAMS Security Accounts Manager. Description: manages the security accounts database. Relationship to AD: essential for managing user and group accounts. Impact if not running: users cannot log in and account management is impaired. Startup type: automatic. Startup 12. Server. Description: supports file print and named pipe sharing over the network. Relationship to AD: required for sharing AD resources. Impact if not running: failures in resource sharing and network communication. Startup type: automatic. NAR 13. SMTP/SVC, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Description: manages email services. Relationship to AD: used if AD replication is based on SMTP. Impact if not running: SMTP-based AD replication fails. Startup type, if required, should be set to automatic. For 14, W32 time, Windows time. Description: manages time synchronization. Relationship to AD: ensures time consistency across all AD domain controllers. Impact if not running: time discrepancies leading to authentication and replication issues. Startup type: automatic or manual. 15. Workstation. Description: manages network connections and communication. Essential for domain connectivity and resource access. Impact if not running: failures in network communication and domain connectivity. Startup type: automatic. These services are critical for the smooth operation of Active Directory. If any of these services are not running, not accessible, or their startup types are incorrectly set, it can lead to significant issues with AD functionality, including replication failures, authentication problems, and general instability in the AD environment.
So as we can see here that all of these services are very critical for the Active Directory to run. So if I tell him to explain using, just a moment, if I tell him to explain using these explain using real world example in the context of the Active Directory domain, let's say we have domain named matrix.internal and two domain controllers, PDC named so and ADC named so. Let's see how we can apply this to a real world scenario.
A domain controller. For instance, if DCSM01225 is the primary domain controller and netlogon fails, all user logins trying to authenticate through DCSM01225 will fail, potentially causing widespread login issues across the organization. 8. NTDS, Active Directory Domain Services. Example: NTDS manages the AD database, which includes user accounts, groups, and policies. Impact if not running: if a domain controller. For instance, if
No, let's read it in a different way.
Sure, let's break down the services with real-world examples using the context of an Active Directory domain named Matrix internal with two domain controllers. The primary domain controller, PDC, DCSM01225, and the additional domain controller, ADC, DCSM0225. 1. DFSR, Distributed File System Replication. Example, DFSR ensures that the sysful folder is replicated between DCSM01225 and DCSM0225. This folder contains group policy information and login scripts. Impact if not running. If DFSR on DCSM01225 stops, any changes to group policies or login scripts will not be replicated to DCSM0225, leading to inconsistencies. For example, if a new policy is applied to restrict USB access, users authenticating through DCSM0225 may not receive this policy, causing a security risk. 2. DNSCAKE, DNS client. Example, the DNSCAKE service helps quickly resolve DNS names like DCSM01225.matrix internal to an IP address. Impact if not running. Without DNSCAKE, name resolution will be slower. For instance, when a user logs in, their machine queries for DCSM01225.matrix internal to find the domain controller. A slow response can delay logins and access to network resources. 3. Event System, Complex Event System. Example, Event System supports the functioning of various system events that AD services rely on. Impact if not running. If the Complex Event System service on DCSM01225 fails, AD might not be able to trigger or log crucial events. For example, failure to log important security events can make it difficult to troubleshoot login issues or detect security breaches. 4. ISADMIN, IIS Admin Service. Example, this service is used if SMTP-based AD replication is configured. Impact if not running. If DCSM01225 uses SMTP for AD replication and the ISADMIN service is down, replication will fail. This means DCSM0225 will not receive updates, causing outdated information on user accounts or group policies. 5. ISMServe, Inter-Site Messaging. Example, ISMServe manages communication between Matrix internal sites if the domain spans multiple geographical locations. Impact if not running. If ISMServe on DCSM01225 fails, it could disrupt inter-site replication. For instance, user account changes made in DCSM01225 may not replicate to other sites, leading to outdated user information. 6. KDC, Kerberos Key Distribution Center. Example, KDC issues tickets for Kerberos authentication within Matrix internal. Impact if not running. If KDC on DCSM01225 stops, users and services will not be able to authenticate using Kerberos, leading to login failures and inability to access network resources. For instance, a user trying to access a file share will be denied access. 7. Netlogon. Example, Netlogon manages the security channel between DCSM01225 and the domain's workstations. Impact if not running. If Netlogon fails on DCSM01225, users will be unable to log into the domain, and DCSM01225 will not advertise itself as a domain controller. For instance, if DCSM01225 is the primary domain controller and Netlogon fails, all user logins trying to authenticate through DCSM01225 will fail, potentially causing widespread login issues across the organization. 8. NTDS, Active Directory Domain Services. Example, NTDS manages the AD database, which includes user accounts, groups, and policies. Impact if not running. If NTDS on DCSM01225 stops, the entire AD service on that domain controller will fail. This means users will be unable to log in, access resources, or perform any AD-related functions through DCSM01225. For example, if an admin tries to create a new user account or modify group memberships, these actions will fail. 9. NTFRS, File Replication Service. Example, before DFSR, NTFRS was used for replicating the sysful folder. If some legacy systems still use NTFRS, it needs to be running. Impact if not running. If NTFRS on DCSM 01225 fails, legacy systems dependent on NTFRS for sysful replication will experience replication issues. This means group policies might not be updated correctly on DCSM 0225. 10. RPCSS, Remote Procedure Call. Example. RPCSS enables communication between different services on DCSM 01225 and other systems in the network. Impact if not running. If RPCSS on DCSM 01225 is down, many AD-related services that rely on RPC will fail. For example, replication between DCSM 01225 and DCSM 02225 might stop, causing inconsistencies across the domain. 11. SAMSS, Security Accounts Manager. Example. SAMSS manages the security accounts database, including passwords and other security-related data. Impact if not running. If SAMSS on DCSM 01225 stops, it will prevent user authentications and account management operations. Users will be unable to log in, and administrators will be unable to manage user accounts. 12. Server. Example. Server service supports sharing files and printers. Impact if not running. If the server service on DCSM 01225 is down, file shares and printers hosted on this domain controller will be inaccessible. For instance, a shared folder with important documents will not be available to users. 13. SMTP/SVC, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Example. SMTP/SVC is used for SMTP-based AD replication. Impact if not running. If matrix.internal uses SMTP for replication and the SMTP/SVC on DCSM 01225 is down, AD replication will fail. This means changes made on DCSM 01225 will not replicate to DCSM 0225, causing inconsistencies. 14. W32 time, Windows time. Example. W32 time ensures all systems in matrix internal are synchronized to the same time. Impact if not running. If W32 time on DCSM 01225 is down, time synchronization will fail, leading to issues with Kerberos authentication, which is time-sensitive, and replication. Users might experience login failures due to time discrepancies. 15. Workstation. Example. Workstation service supports network connections and communication from client machines to servers. Impact if not running. If the workstation service on DCSM 01225 fails, the domain controller won't be able to connect to the network or other systems, disrupting its ability to serve as a domain controller. For example, client machines won't be able to access resources or authenticate through DCSM 01225. Summary. Each of these services plays a critical role in maintaining the health and functionality of the Active Directory domain. If any of these services are not running, not accessible, or their startup types are incorrectly set, it can lead to severe disruptions in AD operations, affecting everything from user authentication and replication to resource access and overall domain stability. Proper monitoring and maintenance of these services ensure the smooth operation of the domain matrix internal and its domain controllers DCSM 01225 and DCSM 0225.
So let me see something here. There is a service called Workstations. If you try to see it on my laptop, let's see something called Workstations. If we go further down, here we can see this is the service. Says creates and maintains a client network connection to the remote servers using the SMB protocol. If this service is stopped, the connection will be unavailable. The service is disabled. Any services expectantly depend. So it's to maintain a network connection with the remote servers like the domain controller using the SMB protocol, which is basically a protocol used for accessing file resources. So I think this is related to file sharing and print sharing, because there is another service called servers, which is the server side of this service. Okay, so I think both are working together. Anyway, so this is what will happen if these services is not running in a domain. So here one question, the SAM or SAM SS Security Account Manager, is this related to local users and groups on the domain controller, or it is related to the Active Directory users? So the SAM, this is a service that controls the local users and groups on a server or on a workstation. So this is only related to local users, or it is related to the Active Directory users. Let's see here the answer of ChatGPT. Okay.
Yes, the Security Accounts Manager, SAMSS, service is related to local users and groups on the domain controller, but it also plays a role in managing security information for domain accounts. Explanation. 1. Local users and groups. On any Windows machine, the SAM, Security Accounts Manager, database stores information about local users and groups. This includes usernames, passwords, and security identifiers, SIDs, for local accounts. On a domain controller, the local SAM database is still present, but is generally not used for domain operations, since the domain controller primarily relies on Active Directory for user and group management. 2. Domain accounts. On a domain controller, SAMSS also interacts with the AD database to manage security information related to domain accounts. This includes authentication and authorization information for domain users and groups. Impact on domain controllers. Local accounts. If the SAMSS service is down, local accounts on the domain controller might be affected. However, since domain controllers primarily use Active Directory for authentication, this impact is usually minimal. Domain accounts. SAMSS is crucial for managing security information within the AD environment. If the SAMSS service on a domain controller, e.g. DCSN01125 in the matrix.internal domain, is not running, users may experience authentication issues. Administrators may face difficulties in managing user and group accounts. Access to resources governed by domain accounts might be disrupted. Real-world example. Imagine you have a domain named matrix.internal with two domain controllers, DCSM0125, PDC, and DCSM0225, ADC. The SAMSS service on DCSM1225 is responsible for ensuring that security information for domain users such as password hashes and account lockout status is managed correctly. Enabling the creation, modification, and deletion of domain user and group accounts. If the SAMSS service on DCSM0125 stops, local accounts. Administrators might not be able to log in using local admin accounts, although this is less relevant for domain controllers where local accounts are rarely used. Domain accounts. Users across the domain might find themselves unable to log in, access resources, or have their account information updated. For instance, if an admin tries to reset a user's password, the operation might fail. In summary, while SAMSS does handle local users and groups on the domain controller, its primary role in the context of a domain controller within an Active Directory environment is to manage security information related to domain accounts. Ensuring SAMSS is running smoothly is essential for both local and domain account management.
So here we have something very, very critical to know. Every service in the Windows have two things or have two names, something called the service name, which is the real name, and the display name, which is something to be readable by human or something to be understandable by human. So this is the display name, which is more readable or we can understand it. And as for the service name, this is the real name of the service. So for example, we have a service named Workstation. If we go down, this is called Workstations. This is not a familiar name. What is we mean by workstation? So this is not, or we cannot know what this service do from its display name. So from the service name, we can know it is called LAN man workstation, which is related to local area network. So this can be local area manager workstation. So this is related to the connections, so we can know from the service name what this service do. So here I'm asking the ChatGPT to provide each service display name and the service name to make sure that we can comprehend what this service do. So let's see each one of these and their service name. So let's go now and see what are these service names.
Certainly. Here are the service names, not the display names, for each of the services tested by the DCDIAG services test. 1. Distributed File System Replication, service name, DFSR. 2. DNS Client, DNS service name DNS Cache. 3. COM plus Event System, service name Event System. 4. IIS Admin Service, IIS Admin, service name IIS Admin. 5. Intersite Messaging, IIS Service Name. ISM Serv 6. Kerberos Key Distribution Center, KDC, service name KDC. 7. NetLogon Service Name NetLogon. 8. Active Directory Domain Services, NTDS. 9. File Replication Service, service name NTFRS. 10. Remote Procedure Call, service name RPCSS. Security Accounts Manager. 12. Security Accounts Manager SAMSANE. Service name Landman Server 13. Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, SMTP, service name SMTP SVC. 14. Windows Time, W32 Time, service name W32 Time. 15. Workstation, work service name Landman Workstation. These service names are the ones used internally by Windows and are found in the registry path HKey Local Machine System Current Control Set Services. Each of these services plays a critical role in the proper functioning of Active Directory and related operations.
So you can see here, I ask him to count the services. Here he have counted 15 services. So they are very, very critical. We have 13 services. Here I'm asking him to arrange a table for the display name and the column for the service name and the column for the startup type and the column for the description column. So every service we will see the display name, the service name, the startup type, the description, and an example. So this will compile all what we have done before. So let's read them again with the ChatGPT. Read it loudly.
Sure, here is the information arranged in a table. Display name, service name, startup type, description. Example. Automatic handles the replication of files across multiple servers. Distributed File System Replication, automatic, handles the replication of files across multiple servers. Servers ensures CIS-vol folder is replicated between DCSM01225 and DCSM0225. DNS Client, DNS Cache Automatic, resolves DNS queries locally to speed up subsequent queries. Resolves DCSM.matrix.internal to an IP address for quick login access. COM plus Event System, automatic, supports system event notification. Logs important security events, aiding in troubleshooting login issues. IIS Admin Service, IIS Admin, automatic, manages Internet Information Services if using SMTP-based AD replication. Supports SMTP-based AD replication if configured. Intersite Messaging, automatic, manages intersite messaging in AD, facilitates communication between AD sites within matrix.internal. Kerberos Key Distribution Center, KDC, automatic, manages Kerberos authentication tickets, issues tickets for user authentication within matrix.internal. NetLogon, automatic, manages the logon process and maintains the security channel between a workstation and domain controller. Authenticates users and ensures domain controllers are reachable for logins. Active Directory Domain Services, NTDS, automatic, manages the AD database. Central to the functioning of AD, stores all directory data. File Replication Service, NTF, automatic, replicates files across servers, legacy service, replaced by DFSR. Replicates CIS-vol folder for legacy systems. Remote Procedure Call, RPC, automatic, manages Remote Procedure Call RPC services. Enables communication between DCSM01225 and other systems. Security Accounts Manager, SAMSES, automatic, manages the security accounts database including passwords and other security-related data, handles local and domain account security information. Server, Landman Server, automatic, supports file, print, and named pipe sharing over the network. Allows file shares and printers hosted on DCSM1225 to be accessible. Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, SMTP SVC, automatic, manages email services if using SMTP-based AD replication, supports AD replication via email if configured. Windows Time, W32 Time, automatic, manages time synchronization, ensures time consistency across domain controllers in matrix.internal. Workstation, Landman Workstation, automatic, manages network connections and communication from client machines to servers, ensures DCSM01225 can connect to the network and other systems. This table provides a clear overview of each service's display name, service name, startup type, description, and a real-world example relevant to an Active Directory domain.
So as we can see here, this is very, very good example, and now we have this table to summarize what we are talking about the 15 services which the test of DCDIAG called services will run to make sure that the Active Directory is running perfectly and without any problems. The next test that we need to focus on something called Systemlog. Okay, this is the other service. If we go, we will see now something called syslog. It will check if there is any errors related to the system that the DC or the domain controller is configured on. So we have DC or domain controller role configured on Windows Server 2022. We need to make sure that the Windows Server 2022 operating system doesn't have any errors, because this will affect the performance of the domain controller, and this also will affect the performance of the Active Directory. How this will be done? It will check the last, let's see here what Microsoft says about this. If we go to the website, it says that the system log validates that the system health or system event log health by reading and writing entries from the last 60 minutes for any errors and warnings. So it will go and check the event viewer of the domain controller and check for any errors and warning relating to the system. Okay, this test use RPC and Service Control Manager remote protocol if you are checking logs on a remote server. So for example, if we open Start, then Control Panel, then we go to Administrative Tools Event Viewer. If we go to System or Windows Log, go to the System, here the test system logs will check for any events or errors and warning related to the system. For example, here we have a couple of things. Let's wait for a moment. Here we have only two events, okay, related to the system logs, okay, and there is no errors. You can, for example, make a custom view. Here, for example, like I can make a custom view to only include errors and warnings relating to the system log. We can make like this, create a new custom, and then we tell him warning and errors, and then we can check here to only include errors related to the system. So we can make a custom view or a custom window, so we can through it check if there is any errors relating to the system from this window or by creating a custom view. So this is very, very critical to check for the last 60 minutes or the last 60 minutes if it contains any errors related to the system, especially there are errors or warnings or critical errors. Okay, so this is very, very critical to make sure the system that the domain controller is configured on is working properly and it will not affect its performance and functionality. The same also for the Active Directory, which is also configured or it is a part of the Windows Server 2022 operating system. So if you can go there and check. So I have seen or I've shown you all how we can do this. So this test here, we'll go to something called VerifyEnterpriseReference. Here we will check for some references that are very, very important for the replication. So these tests or these two tests are very, very important because they will check some very important references. Without it, the replication will not work. So what are these references? For example, if we go and see the test itself, if we go and see the reference, okay, let's go further. Here this is the enterprise or verify enterprise references. It says it will check for example, a couple of things. First of all, the computer reference. Here related to the FRS protocol. It will check, or the FRS replication. It will check for the sysvol folders on each of the domain controllers. It will check if under each domain controller the sysvol folder is there and it is pointing to the correct domain controller. So for example, if you have two domain controllers, this test will see the computer reference. It will see if each domain controller it is referring to or under it is pointing to the sysvol share folders. This is what we mean by computer reference. And then the opposite, we need to make sure that the sysvol folders are pointing to the domain controller. So there is two things. First of all, we need to make sure that domain controller under it we can see the sysvol folder shared, and at the opposite we need to make sure that the sysvol folders are pointing to the domain controllers. These two are working with a terminology called forward link and backlink. When I am making sure that the domain controllers under it, all the share folders, including the sysvol share folder, is listed, this is called forward link. I mean that the domain controller is pointing to the sysvol folder. This is called forward link. When I am talking about the sysvol folder is pointing back to the domain controller, this is called backward link. This is called forward link and backward link. These are two important concepts. Why we use a forward link and a backward link? This will help us to find things easily. So for example, if I am in a domain environment and I need a PowerShell script to get the group membership of the IT Active Directory group, it will search, the PowerShell will search for the forward link. It will go to the Active Directory group called IT. It will see the forward link which is pointing to all of the users that are members to this group. This is called forward link. For example, if we have an example, I have a group called IT in the Active Directory. It contains users, so the Active Directory group IT is pointing to all of the users within the group. This is called forward link. It is pointing to the users. But if I am talking about Karim, Karim is as a member pointing to the group that he is a member of. So this is called backward link. So here why I'm talking about this, because this check or this reference or this check reference will check for the domain controllers, will check if the sysvol folder is shared under it, and the opposite, the sysvol folder is pointing back to the domain controller. Okay, this is done using the FRS and the DFRS, the two. Okay, so we need, when we are talking about forward link and backward link, we are talking about two objects, or the object is referring to its origin, okay, or the parent is referring to the child, okay, and the child is referring back to the parent. So this is very, very important. If I need to use PowerShell scripts, for example, to know the group membership of a group, then we are using a forward link. If I need a PowerShell script to get me or telling me that Karim is a member of which group, then we are using the backward link to get this info. So for example, this first test will check for the sysvol folders, the domain controllers under it, what sysvol folders are shared, and the sysvol folders are pointing back to domain controllers. And here we are checking the NTDS setting for each domain controller, which is very, very important. It contains a lot of info concerning the domain controller and the replication schedule and a lot of things. As for the DFRS, these two are used when we are replicating using DFRS, and these two are used when we are using FRS protocol. As for the NC, here it will check for the partitions of the Active Directory if they are referenced correctly to the right domain controller, and it is pointing to the other or it is replicating to the correct partitions on other domain controllers. And the server reference, here we can see that also we are checking if the domain controller is within the same site, it is referring to the same site. So here we are talking about that in each site the domain controllers are listed within the site. Okay, so we are checking if the site contains the right domain controllers, and then at the opposite we are seeing if the domain controller is referring to the correct site. So we are checking if the site contains the right domain controllers, which is the forward link, and at the opposite we are checking if the domain controllers is referring to the right site. So these are all tests, or in short, these tests will check for the sysvol folders and if they are shared correctly and pointing to the right domain controller, and if the partitions in the of the Active Directory are linked to the right domain controller, and this is advertised and published to all of the domain controllers, and if the domain controllers are listed within the right sites. So let me show you all. This is for all of the domain controllers within a site. So there is something called Verify Enterprise Reference. These tests are done to each domain controller within a site. There is one thing called, or another test called Verify Reference. Is this the same as Verify Enterprise Reference, but this is done on a single DC. Okay, and a couple of things are not tested. Here, for example, partitions on the Active Directory database will not be tested, and the NTDS setting will not be tested. So we can see that both tests are testing the references or the links or the references of the sysvol folders, the sites, the partitions. So let's see here if we can ask the ChatGPT to explain further this by using a real-world example. So let's wait for a moment and come back. So let's continue, guys. Here we will have an example or a real-world example on the test Verify Enterprise References, and I need to explain what is a forward link and the backward link. For example, let's go to my this laptop. If we see the local users and group in this computer, so for example, if we go to local, then groups, then administrators, so this group have a forward link that will point to its members. So for example, the administrators group will have a forward link that will point to the administrator user and the Karim user. Okay, so this link will forward to its member. This is the forward link. If we go to the user, which is Karim, and the member of here, he is pointing back to the administrators group. This is called backward link. So in the Active Directory, or this test will test for both forward links and backward links. This will help to ease communication and to verify or to simply verify the objects in the Active Directory. So for example, the sysvol folder, if we, for example, go to the share folders, something like share folder, for example, here, this share folder, it is pointing back to my computer, and my computer is pointing back to the folder, or under my computer. So for example, here is my computer, under it there is, or this computer will have forward link to all of the share folders under it, and every share folder will point back to my computer. Okay, so this is called backward link and forward link. These are very useful when you're trying to using some PowerShell scripts to get, for example, a group membership, or members of a group, or you are trying to know if a user is a member of a certain group. So let's consider, for example, that we don't have a backward link for Karim. So then I need to go to every group and check the membership of Karim in it. But if I have a backward link, then this will be very easy. I will check Cecile backward link, or Karim is pointing to which group, then from it I can know the membership of Karim or the membership of this user to what group. Okay, so this is very, very good example of forward and backward link. Let's see an example or a real world example about this this example of Verify Enterprise References. Let's read it loudly and see. Okay, just wait for a moment. So here we go. Okay, let's read it loudly.
Sure. Here's the explanation using your scenario without layman's terms. Verify enterprise references. For the domain matrix.internal with domain controllers DCSM01225 PDC and DCSM0225 ADC, Verify Enterprise References checks the integrity of specific system references for the FRS and replication infrastructure across all objects on each domain controller. This includes verifying the following attributes and objects: FRS computer reference, sharp, copy code, CN equals domain system volume, sysvol share, CN equals NTFRS subscriptions, CN equals DCSM01225, OU equals domain controllers, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal, CN equals domain system volume, sysvol share, CN equals NTFRS subscriptions, CN equals DCSM0225, OU equals domain controllers, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal. Ensures that the sysvol share is properly referenced in the FRS subscriptions. FRS computer reference BL. Sharp. Copy code. CN equals DCSM01225. CN equals domain system volume, sysvol share. CN equals file replication service. CN equals system. DC equals matrix. DC equals internal, CN equals DCSM0225, CN equals domain system volume, sysvol share, CN equals file replication service, CN equals system, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal. Verifies the backlink reference from the sysvol share to the domain controllers. Has masterancies. Mathematica. Copy code. CN equals NTDS settings, CN equals DCSM01225, CN equals default first site name, CN equals sites, CN equals configuration, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal, CN equals NTDS settings, CN equals DCSM0225, CN equals default first site name, CN equals sites, CN equals configuration, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal. Checks that the NTDS settings are correctly configured for the domain controllers in their respective sites. MSDFSR computer reference. Perl. Copy code. CN equals DCSM01225, CN equals topology, CN equals domain system volume, CN equals DFSR global settings, CN equals system, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal, CN equals DCSM0225, CN equals topology, CN equals domain system volume, CN equals DFSR global settings, CN equals system, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal. Ensures that the DFSR settings reference the domain controllers correctly. MSDFSR computer reference BL. Sharp. Copy code. CN equals DCSM01225, OU equals domain controllers, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal, CN equals DCSM0225, OU equals domain controllers, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal. Verifies the backlink reference from the domain controllers to the DFSR settings. NC name. Sharp. Copy code. CN equals partitions, CN equals configuration, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal. Confirms the naming context for the domain partitions. Server reference. Mathematica. Copy code. CN equals DCSM01225, CN equals default first site name, CN equals sites, CN equals configuration, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal, CN equals DCSM0225, CN equals default first site name, CN equals sites, CN equals configuration, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal. Ensures that the server references for the domain controllers are correct within the site configuration. Server reference BL. Sharp. Copy code. CN equals DCSM01225, OU equals domain controllers, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal CN equals DCSM0225. OU equals domain controllers, DC equals matrix, DC equals internal, verifies the backlink reference from the domain controllers to the site configuration. The two DFSR tests are only performed if the domain functional level is Windows Server 2008 or higher. If DFSR hasn't been migrated to Sysful, there will be expected failures. This test uses LDAP to contact only the specified domain controllers. Forward links and backlinks. Forward link. A forward link is a reference from one object to another object it refers to. For example, in your domain matrix.internal, if a group object on DCSM01225 has a member attribute containing the distinguished names, DNs, of all user objects that are members of the group, this member attribute is a forward link from the group to its members. Forward links are multi-valued and can contain multiple references. Backlink. A backlink is a reference from an object back to another object that refers to it. In the same domain, for every user object listed in the member attribute of a group on DCSM01225, there is a corresponding member of attribute in the user object that points back to the group. This member of attribute is a backlink. Backlinks are derived from the values of their corresponding forward links, making them effectively read-only. Changes to the forward link are automatically reflected in the backlink. These link relationships are crucial for representing associations between objects in Active Directory, such as group memberships and hierarchical relationship.
So this is the explanation of Enterprise References. We have seen this test and explained it thoroughly, and the same go to verify reference, but this only checks it on a single DC, and a couple of tests are not run. For example, the partition or checking the partitions of the Active Directory database and the NTDS settings. So the same test will be done using the verify references, but only to a single DC and without checking the partitions of the Active Directory on this single DC and checking the NTDS setting on this single DC. So he's saying this test uses LDAP and is similar to Verify Enterprise References test, except that it does not check partitions across references or all other DC's objects. So this is simply these two tests, okay, that we are talking about. Very, very important. If one of these references are not correct, the replication will fail and you will see communication errors. Maybe you will see login failures. So a lot of things will happen if these references are not correct. So this is very, very important thing to note or to take care. So these are very important two things. Let's go further. Let me go further like that. Okay, and if you go further like that, verify replica. Okay, this is the red master. We have discussed this before. The SID or the component of the SID, we have seen this and we have talked about it in the previous video. If we go further like that, then there is a couple of things. You can know the SID of a certain user or a certain computer using PowerShell or CMD or registry. So this can be done using a couple of methods. Let's see how this can be done. If you want to use the SID of a certain computer or user, this can be done using a couple of methods. If we go further, and let me show you all how this can be done. So we will go to, for example, my additional domain controller, and we will issue a command to know, for example, the SID for the user. Why we are talking about the SID? We know that one of the tests done by the DCDIAG, something called Red Manager. Red Manager checks whether the Red Master is accessible or not. The Red Master is responsible for issuing new SIDs to any newly created users or groups in the Active Directory. The SID is very, very important to uniquely identify every object in the Active Directory. And the one who is responsible for issuing the SIDs or giving the pool of SIDs to every domain controller is the Red Master. Okay, so we need to make sure that the Red Master is accessible. This through the Red Manager test, it will verify that Red Master is accessible. It contains valid Red pools or valid Red SID values, Okay, it can be contacted, the communication, it can communicate. The role holder must be online and accessible for deceased to be able to create security principles, users, groups, and computer, as well as for further deceased to be promoted within a domain. Okay, so we have talked about this before, but here he is talking about or explaining the SID, how we can get the user SID and get the computer SID. This can be done using a couple of methods. This command should be done through the command prompt, not through the PowerShell. So this will not be, or if you try to do it, it will give an error because this is done through the PowerShell. It should be done using the command prompt. So get SID. To get the SID of the Karim.Raouf user here, you cannot get it, so you need to open a command prompt to get the SID of the user. And there is another way to get the SID of the computer, and I will show you all how to do that. Why we need to know the SID of a computer or a user? This will help you to uniquely identify a user and a computer, or if you are making images and making to its sysprep, you need to make sure that the SID of the computer is changed after you make a sysprep. So this command will help you to know if the SID is changed or not. This is for the user, and we will see if this will be done for the computer. Again, you need to run the command prompt with administrative credentials. So now we need to go there and we'll get this one and run. So we'll copy this and then through the command prompt we will run the command and see if we can get the SID of the user. Now here is the SID of the user. Simply, this is the SID of Karim.Raouf. Okay, how we can get this from the PowerShell? We can run another command. If we go there, here is the command in. Okay, this is the command. This is the whole command, and I will show you all how we can get the SID of a user or a computer using a simple tool or a simple software provided by Microsoft. So for example, if you go to Microsoft website and download something called Microsoft Sysinternals suite, it will give you a couple of tools. From it you can know, for example, the SID of a computer, of a user, and a lot of things actually. One of these tools is called PS. Okay, this is PS get SID. So if I go right click and tell him to run or make the CMD, if I go like there and tell him CMD and tell him like that, right click and run as an administrator, okay, and then tell him PS get SID, okay, .exe, and then press enter. Now here this is the SID for the computer. Okay, here I can get the SID for the computer. As for the user, we can go do like that and make like this. Here we can get the SID of an account. So we can type, for example, like this and type minus account, or I think slash account. Then we can type Karim, and let's see if I can get the SID. Okay, I think maybe we can make okay, account P will report the SID for a specific user account rather than the computer. So if we tell him like that, or slash account maybe, then we type Karim. Okay, I think maybe we need to put the account directly. So if we put like that, tell him Karim, and then paste. Now he got the SID of the user. So now I have get the SID for the user, and before that I have get the SID of the computer. Very, very simple command. A tool you can download it from Microsoft website. It is called Sysinternals suite. You can simply know the SID of the user and the computer. Very, very simple, as we have seen that. So the PowerShell command, maybe it will not be efficient to get the SID of a user. We can ask ChatGPT to provide the command. I need a PowerShell command to get SID for a user. I need for a local user. So this is the command. We can copy it like that. We will copy the code and we will open the command, PowerShell command, and let's change. First we will take the parameters and change it. Let's open like that, and we can go further like that and press enter. Then we need to change the username and put Karim. Okay, for example, this is the user, and then we can copy all like that, copy, and then let's try to put it in the command prompt, or sorry, in the PowerShell command. Here we see that we have got the SID of the user. Okay, let's see if we can tweak it. Okay, I need the same but for the computer. So here also we need to copy like that. The script will output as developed loaded. The big ticket $sign are used to format the name. Okay, so we can copy this and get the computer name, or we get the SID if try to do that, and try to do the same here, or paste. So we didn't copy or copy code, and then go like that and tell him paste argument saying translate with L. Where is the L here? Exception translate with L argument. Some identity could not be translated. I think, this is not correct. He is still getting not for the computer. Anyway, so if we try to okay, anyway, I think this is not correct. This is the same answer. So you can see here, this is the same answer. Didn't get the SID of the computer. So we can tell him to, he is saying that the backticket, the $sign used to properly format the computer name as computer account and active directory, typically followed by a $sign. I need that for a local computer. So we have changed the parameter. Let's copy it and see if it will get, again we get the same error. So this is not a correct one. If you try to give him the error, this error encountered. So here is saying that there is a couple of things we can get the SID with. So here is saying that to retrieve the local account you need to use so and so. Here is an alternative approach using WIM SID. If you want to retrieve SID for directly without using more straightforward approach, okay, this is the one. If you still have errors, you can use the last one using WMI. Okay, let's use this straightforward approach and see if we can get, okay, again we have the same error, so I think we can use the last one, WMI, okay, like that, and then press like that. We didn't get anything, so this is not correct at all. Anyway, we have seen how we can get the SID, very simple, from the PS get SID Microsoft Sys internal tool, because this is very simple, as we can see here, very simple to get the SID, or you can get the SID of the users from the registry. This is for the users, not for the computers. So we can go to local machine, software, then Microsoft, software, then Microsoft, then we can go to Windows, I think, Microsoft Windows NT, Windows NT, Windows NT, here you go, and then we can go to the current version, then profile or list of profiles. It will profile list, it will list all of the users and their SIDs. So for example, if we go and check the profile list, here you go, this is the profile list. We will open like that. We will see a couple of SIDs. If you click any one of them, let me show you all how you can know the SID of which one. For example, if I click on this one, we will see at the profile image pass, this is Karim.Raouf. So this is SID is for the user Karim.Raouf profile of Karim.Raouf. So this is the SID of the user. Okay. And then if we go further, we can see other things. So for example, go there, this is for administrator account. This is the SID for the administrator account. This is the SID for Karim.Raouf account. And the other things will be for the network service account, local system account called network service. And you will see the SID for the local service. So this is another local user, system user called local service, the SID of it. And the last one is for the system profile, I think another local user. Okay, so these are all how you can know the SID of the user. We have seen how we can get the SID of the computer, very simple. So this is how you can get the SID. We have talked about the AD tombstone before in a previous video, and how this will affect the replication of the Active Directory database. This is also one of the things we need to focus on to know the AD tombstone and its effect on the replication. I will stop at minute or 1 hour 8 minutes. Hope this video informative for you all, and thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.